Greetings and welcome back to 303. We turn now back to Mr. Conrad's Unstoppable Volume and Lesson 5.3, Push Back. Let's begin in your journals quickly with just a quick observation of focus. You have to learn to stand up for yourself. You have to learn to be a fighter. Our instincts are sometimes to back down, to let people, walk all over us, if you will. And this chapter is going to argue not a good idea. Let's take a look. Glenn Dusick was a basketball player. I met Glenn during my first year teaching. He was a tall, slender farm boy who loved basketball. He even had a hoop set up on his family's ranch. The problem was he wasn't that good of a player. Although Glenn had many of the skills, he lacked the confidence needed to become a great player, or for that matter, to even be a starter on his high school team. Much of Glenn's lack of confidence was due in part to a comment his freshman coach had made at the end of the season. While addressing his team, the coach told the players not to go around making excuses, or what he called a loser's limp. Glenn interpreted that comment to mean he was a limping loser. Glenn was lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut when his father, Duke, asked if I'd help his son become a better ball player. Duke discovered that I'd played college basketball from our principal, Joe Janoski. Joe had told Duke about the new teacher he had just hired, and then he had an illustrious basketball background. So that's how it came about that Glenn became my first project. I really liked Glenn. He reminded me of myself at that age. There wasn't a mean or aggressive bone in his body, but I knew that would have to change. For starters, I showed Glenn my scrapbook, something I had never done before, or for that matter, since. I shared my low point the day my coach asked me for my uniform so another kid could wear it. We didn't have enough to go around, so I sat on the bench that next game wearing a t-shirt. As Glenn turned page after page of the scrapbook, reading the articles and seeing the pictures of the high points from my glory days, I asked him, "How bad do you want it?" A misty-eyed Glenn replied, "I want it more than anything." I assured Glenn he could have that same success, but it was going to take a lot of hard work. The very next day, the hard work began. My first rule was no more getting rides to school or practice. I made him ride his bike over 10 miles a day. The second rule was weightlifting at least 3 times a week. But the third rule was the most important one of all. He had to play basketball against me every day after school. This was how I was going to transform Glenn into a mean, lean basketball machine. Day after day we played ball. Sometimes it was just the two of us. Other days there were enough guys to pick teams. Regardless of the number of players, one thing was always the same. Glenn and I guarded each other. We were never on the same team. Looking back, those days in the gym could best be described as child abuse. I pushed and knocked Glenn around and down countless times. He was so happy I was helping him that he never complained. He would get back up, smile at me, dust himself off, and keep playing. This just made me push harder. I wanted him to push back. He never did. Day after day, week after week, month after month, Glenn would get back up, smile, keep playing. I was starting to lose hope that he would ever become aggressive enough to push back. Then, one day, it happened. I fouled Glenn hard one day. Actually, the foul was on the borderline of being a cheap shot. Glenn hit the floor hard, and some of his teammates ran over to see if he was all right. What happened next would be a defining moment in young Glenn's life. Instead of smiling, Glenn came right at me. He pushed me in the chest with both hands and yelled, "I'm sick of your blankety blank." He wanted to fight. At long last, Glenn had had enough. I guess all those years of getting pushed around had bottled up inside of him. Now the cap blew off and emotion was flowing everywhere. I was so happy I wanted to hug him, but I couldn't blow my cover. I pushed him back. I yelled, "You want a piece of this? Let's go." I put up my fists. I was talking smack, putting on a show. The whole time I was waiting for somebody to step in and stop this nonsense. Luckily, the other players pulled us apart. Glenn was so upset he was in tears. I was supposed to be his friend. What Glenn didn't realize was that he had just been transformed into a lean, mean basketball machine. Mission accomplished. As soon as I got home that day, I called his dad. "Duke," I said, "he's ready." I proudly watched Glenn his senior year dominate the district semifinal game at Mesa State College in Grand Junction. He scored 20 plus points, had several blocked shots, and a ton of rebounds. He had to guard a 6'8" kid from Grand Junction Central who was their leading scorer. Glenn played awesome and aggressive defense, shutting him down. Glenn and his team won the game, and the next night they won the district championship. Afterward, in front of everyone at the game, Glenn's mom, Jackie, hugged me. With tears of pride and joy streaming down her cheeks, she said, "That all happened because of you." I thanked and corrected her. That all happened because Glenn pushed back. Glenn had definitely passed the man test. And then finally the observation, sometimes the unstoppable you must push back. Let's pause for a moment in our journals and just make a couple of quick observations. There's a very famous story in the traditions that tells of the young man who comes to the old man to say, "I want to learn." And the young man says, "Are you sure?" And a kid says, "I really want to learn from you." And the old man says, "Tomorrow morning, meet me at the river." And the young kid the next morning meets him at the river. And they walk out into the river. And the young kid's got no idea what's about to happen to him. The old man grabs him by the top of the head and shoves him under the water and holds him there, drowning him. The young man, of course, at first is so stunned he doesn't know, but as he begins to die, he starts kicking and moving his arm, trying to get to the air, and of course the old man's holding him under the water. At the last second, before the kid is going to drown, the old man lets him up. The kid is outraged. "How dare you?" He's coughing, he's sputtering, he goes back to the edge of the river, he sits there, he's crying, he's upset. "I thought you were going to teach me. You drowned me almost." And the old man says to him, "When you want to know what I can teach you as much as you wanted air, then, and only then can I teach you. Because only then will you be ready to learn." Now that is an interesting story, and it of course plays directly into this unstoppable philosophy. Anyone can say they want to accomplish stuff. The question is, the question he asked Glenn in the very beginning, how bad do you want this? And anybody can say, "I really want it." Of course, the real question is not will, but as we've often said, sustainable will. Don't tell me what you're doing today or even next week. Tell me what you're doing in a year. Tell me what you're doing in 5 years. That's what we mean by sustainable will. And those kinds of life patterns have to begin when you're young, or it's very, very difficult when you get older. Let's take a look at another observation. Success demands hard work. You've heard this your whole life, and some of these word pictures of Mr. Conrad's are proving it. If you really want to be successful, it demands a lot of hard work. As an old man said to me once, if success was as easy as a lollipop, everyone would be licking one. Which is an interesting word picture. I think it's absolutely true. That is to say, if it was that simple, guys, everybody would be a success. There's a reason why so few people of the adults that you know are highly successful. And finally, I think it's important, and we keep saying this because you're seniors and soon to graduate, but I think it's important before you leave high school that if there's anybody in your life who has motivated or challenged you to push back, who has motivated or challenged you to be better, who has motivated or challenged you to realize that to be a success you have to work hard, you might want to find those people in your life and tell them thank you. Conversely, it'll be important for you to be a model as you get older of true success, hard work, making it happen. I was recently asked, for example, about this whole notion of gambling, going to casinos to make money. And one of the observations I made was, here's the biggest problem with making money off of gambling. You don't work at it. You don't earn it. It's a matter of luck. Now, that, of course, there's a bit of intelligence in knowing when to hold them and when to fold them, as they say in the old song. But be that as it may, the genuine success of your life is rooted in really hard work, sustained will over time. Well, there you go, Mr. Conrad. Passage 53, pushing back. Thank you.